Should I tell you guys when to click? When I go.
Yes. You can see that, Drew Dixon showed up to school today and on time. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. That's on your list.
Do I start whenever? Anyways.
Derek, go.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to my presentation today. My name is Jillian B. I'm here today to talk to you about adolescent suicide. Ladies and gentlemen, as a disclaimer, some of the materials covered in this presentation may understandably be triggering to some individuals. I would like to take a minute to invite you to take care of yourselves first and foremost. If you need to leave during the presentation, it is okay. I chose this topic because at first I had started with the topic of nature versus nurture and its impact on mental illness. However, as I did more research, I found a high and disturbing amount of adolescent suicides intertwined into it, and I became passionate to bring awareness to the topic and try to help those who are dealing with it. Through my project, I hope to educate myself about the problem, as well as inform others of the problem, and to help teach my community how to notice and intervene in the situation. Before I begin, I would like to thank, I forgot to tell them, my fault. I would like to thank my sponsor, Mr. Glenn Cross. As my sponsor, he offered insights into how mental illnesses are treated and how he views the values of the different treatments. I would also like to thank Ms. Christine Beard, who acted as my mentor as I worked through the process of completing my senior project, with a focus on the biblical application and how we as Christians should respond to the problem. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for adolescents, and for more than a decade, the suicide rates in teens have been increasing. In a survey from the CDC in 2018, found that 8.9% of students had attempted, high school students, had attempted suicide. That 18.8% of high school students reported having seriously considered committing suicide, and that 91.4% of suicide victims had told someone previously of their plans. In 2018, 2,039 high school-aged teens died from suicide. Risk factors for suicide include recent or serious loss, be that of a loved one or even a pet, psychiatric disorders, mainly mood disorders like depression, prior suicide attempts, trauma, alcohol or substance use disorders, whether that's in the parents or the student themselves, exposure to suicidal behaviors, that can be in peers, in their parents, or even in the media, bullying, lack of social support and people they believe they can trust, and low self-esteem. During the time of COVID-19, there's also been a significant increase in the rates of suicide in teens. There has been an increase in domestic abuse and fighting within the homes also. Because the teens have been out of school, many students have lost their connection to others and their social interactions. This can cause a feeling of isolation and increase the risk of students developing suicidal thoughts or self-injurious behaviors. The warning signs of suicide include talking or writing about suicide, withdrawal from social contacts, loss of interest in usual activities, mood swings, including anger or sadness or anything, feelings of hopelessness, changes in sleeping or eating patterns, risky or self-destructive behaviors, including excess alcohol use and drug use, and giving away belongings for seemingly no reason. And these things are especially concerning if the behaviors have recently begun or increased recently. If teens see warning signs of suicide in their friends, they must take it seriously. Often, we will believe that it is just teenage moodiness or something else, but not take it seriously. And so, however, suicidal behaviors or talk of suicide is a major sign, and teens should encourage their friends to get help and even go with them. Teens should also speak to a trusted adult as well about their friend. As adults and parents, it is important to talk to children and adolescents who might be having suicidal thoughts. If you observe warning signs of suicide, you must ask them. While many people believe that this could be awkward or even put the idea in their mind, it's not true. It can be very helpful, and it can assure the child that someone cares and allows the child to talk about what is troubling them. Questions which could be asked include, are you feeling sad or depressed? Are you thinking about hurting or killing yourself? Have you ever thought about hurting or killing yourself? If you know a child or adolescent who has suicidal thoughts or plans, they should talk to a qualified mental health professional immediately. If they have plans, you should not leave their side until they are with another trusted adult. And as Christians, we should try to help create a community and a trusted space for teens and children because it is vital for them to have these types of spaces and connections. We are all part of the body of Christ and must help each other when we are struggling. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 states, therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing. So, what should society do? There are many resources available for schools and community to use that teach about the risk identification for suicide in individuals. And I think that the state should require regular suicide prevention training for teachers and other professionals who work with teens and children in order to prepare them to assist any children that could be vulnerable and connect them with the resources they need. Currently, there are 13 states which already have mandates for this type of training. Rhode Island is not one of those states, however. I also think that providing mental health first aid teaching to students, even if it is brief, could help them also know how to recognize and respond to signs of crisis in their own peers. Thank you.
Any questions from the audience?
Grace.
What do you think was like, did you learn, was there like a certain fact while you were reading over your information that made you like decide, maybe I should switch like my project up to be about suicide? Like was there like, do you remember like the exact moment?
I had found a case study about a high school-aged girl, and I read into it. And the fact that she had told and discussed and even planned ways to take her own life with her peers, and they didn't tell anyone, that was really staggering to me. And I felt like I needed to, change my topic to suicide at that point. Jacob?
Do you think the quarantine in the past year was a big increase in or spike in the suicide rates of high schoolers?
Yes, it was. Because of the increased isolation, clearly due to being quarantined, and there was also a lot more abuse in the homes and fighting in the homes that can cause trauma and different anxiety and depression in the teens. It increased the risk for developing suicidal ideation. Yes, Jonah?
So during quarantine, was it adults and teens? Like, was it suicide rates everywhere went up, or is it just with adolescents?
Yeah, there was an increase in suicide pretty much across the board during quarantine and during COVID. Juliet.
Are people with mental illnesses more likely to have suicidal
Yes, it's like people like having like depression or like anxiety or something that's like often like increases the risk for developing a like suicidal thoughts, and also like PTSD. That's a big warning thing. But Juliet, do you have another question?
And why did you choose adolescent suicide as opposed to just suicide for all ages?
Well, it felt more prevalent as it's like my own life and my peers' lives, as well as it's like the causes are a lot different. Like when you go to different age groups, like yeah, like so it's a little bit different. Like often in the older age groups, it's due to like PTSD or something like that, or like loneliness in much older people. But in the younger age group, it's often things like stress or feelings of failure or stuff like that. So I chose just our adolescent age group. Any other questions? Grace.
Why do you think that even if your peers hear about suicide, they don't tell anyone?
It can feel very awkward, and it can feel like you're like invading in their privacy when it wasn't your like job to do it. And often you've probably all heard of like the bystander effect. You're like someone else will tell an adult, someone else will get them help. So you just kind of sit there because you don't want to be the one to cause the like friction or tension between you two. So, any other questions?
I have one.
Yes.
And you may not have dived into this particular aspect of suicides among children, but did you see anything, was there any difference between children growing up in Christian families versus non-Christian families? Did you find any evidence on that?
Well, I didn't look into that particularly. I do know that one of the like risk factors that I didn't list here, but can be often in like queer or LGBTQ teens, and if they feel like they're not accepted by their family, that's a big risk for them to decide to end their lives. So.
Another question?
Yep.
First, that number that you gave, which was like I think 91.4.
0.4.
Thank you. That the children previously had told somebody that they were feeling this way, and action was not taken. Again, this is something that, you know, I guess if you were writing a book, you might be able to like dive deeper into it, but like, did anybody say why they didn't take action? Like, why did they just not believe the students? Do you know what they're...
Yeah, often, I don't know exactly why it's like so high, but I know that often the reason that people don't speak up is because they believe it's just like, oh, like their hormones, like they're just saying something to get attention or something like that, even if the student is serious about it. So, because it can be hard to believe that someone you know would feel this way, but it's not rare. It's 18.8% of people or high school students reporting it.
So what you're saying is that words matter.
Yeah.
People need to listen.
Yeah.
Somebody is stating that. It's a cry for help, right?
Yeah. Good.
Any final questions or comments? Jillian, well done. Thank you.